Brian Shaffer was born on February 25, 1979, in Pickerington, a suburb of Columbus where Ohio State University is located. He is the older of Randy and Renee Shaffer's two sons. He graduated from the local high school in 1997 and went to OSU for his undergraduate work. 6 years later, he graduated with a degree in microbiology. In 2004, he enrolled as a medical student at Ohio State University College of Medicine. During his second year there, in March 2006, his mother Renee died of myelodysplasia. His friends say that although he appeared to be handling it well, her death was hard for him. Despite the recent trauma, Brian was determined to finish medical school and achieve his goal of becoming a doctor. During this time, Brian was dating a fellow medical student named Alexis Wagner. Close friends revealed that he loved Alexis, and was even thinking of proposing to her later that year. Brian was described as an ambitious man who dedicated himself to his goals. He was close to his family, and despite the recent loss of his mother, he had never resorted to substance abuse. His friends said that even though Brian was determined to pursue a medical career, he dreamed of living a relaxed lifestyle, and had even said that he would love to move to a tropical island and live off playing Jimmy Buffett-style music. On March 31, 2006, classes for spring break just wrapped up and Brian finished his final exams. To celebrate, he and his father, Randy, went out for dinner that night. Randy said that Brian looked exhausted from all the studying for the exams that week. And even though he had reservations about Brian's plans to head out with friends later that night, he did not express them. It was a bittersweet occasion, as the Shaffers were still dealing with the loss of Brian's mother to cancer 3 weeks prior. But Randy was hopeful for his son's future. Brian also told his father about his upcoming trip to Miami along with Alexis. The trip on which Brian was reportedly planning on proposing to her. After dinner, at around 9 p.m., Brian met up with his friend and former dorm mate, William Clint Florence, at the Ugly Tuna Saloon in downtown Columbus. It was the start of a bar crawl that weaved through the college pubs on southern campus of OSU. The friends had a shot of hard liquor at each of the pubs before heading to the next one. An hour later, Brian called Alexis, who had just returned to her home in Toledo to visit her family before her trip to Miami the next day. After midnight, Clint's friend, Meredith Reed, joined him and Brian on their bar crawl. They continued their booze-laden night back at the Ugly Tuna Saloon, where they started the night for one last drink. At some point between around 1 o'clock and 2 a.m., when the bar closed, Brian became separated from Clint and Meredith. At first they assumed he was in the bathroom or chatting with other people. They began to call him and every call went unanswered. When they were made to leave as the bar closed, they assumed Brian had made his own way home, which was only 6 blocks from the bar, as they could not find him. They eventually went home without him. That morning, Alexis tried to call Brian, but it went straight to voicemail. She thought maybe he was just sleeping off his hangover. She kept calling him throughout the day and became worried when she could not get hold of Brian, even as his departure time for his flight to Miami drew closer. She called Randy and informed him that she could not reach Brian. Randy went to Brian's apartment to check on him, but when he arrived, he thought Brian's apartment looked normal. His car was there and the bed was made. But there was no sign of Brian. Soon after, Randy contacted the police to file a missing person report. He had lost his wife just weeks before. Now he begged the police to find his son. Police began their investigation by first searching the Ugly Tuna Saloon, the bar where Brian was last seen. They reviewed the security camera footage from the bar, which showed Brian, Clint, and Meredith going up an escalator to the bar's main entrance at 1:15 a.m. Brian was seen outside of the bar around 1:55 a.m., talking briefly with 2 young women and saying goodbye, then moving off camera in the direction of the bar, apparently to re-enter. The camera did not record him leaving when the Ugly Tuna closed. That was the last time he was seen. A second camera was positioned outside an emergency exit, and they examined that footage too. Everyone who entered the bar that night was accounted for. Everyone except Brian. Since Columbus has the most security cameras of any city in Ohio, officers next looked to the footage from other bars to see if cameras there could explain how Brian had left the Ugly Tuna. However, footage from cameras at 3 other nearby bars showed no trace of Brian. Brian couldn't have gone far. Maybe he wound up at a local hospital, but nobody remembered seeing him. The police put up missing person flyers on telephone poles. They combed every inch of the Ugly Tuna. They scavenged through the trash cans that lined Pearl Alley, a pathway that ran adjacent to the bar. They marched up and down the banks of the river, the Olentangy. Cadaver dogs prowled the campus grounds in search of a body. All efforts proved fruitless. Police theorized that Brian could have changed his clothes in the bar or put on a hat and kept his head down, hiding his face from the camera. The camera might have missed him as it keeps panning side to side periodically. Maybe Brian left the bar on the 2nd floor via the service exit at the back, which was exclusively used by the bar staff. But the exit opened onto a construction site that officers believed would have been difficult to walk through while sober, much less intoxicated, as Brian likely was at the time. Brian had simply vanished. Weeks passed, then months. The case went cold, but Randy hadn't lost hope. He set up a website that invited tips from the public, a digital shrine that preserved his son's memory. He posted photos from the family scrapbook, images of joy and happier times, praying that someone, somewhere, would recognize Brian. Tips soon came in by email. Someone called Jesus claimed he knew what happened, that Brian was battered unconscious by 2 black men after a clash at the Ugly Tuna. The man said that Brian was sexually assaulted before being shot in the head. This was later found to be an ugly hoax. Later, a woman thought she saw Brian in Atlanta, another was certain she had spotted him in Sweden. These sightings were likely nothing more than memory misattribution. Alexis called Brian's phone every night before she went to bed, in the hope that one day he would answer. Every night, it went straight to voicemail. But in September, 6 months after Brian disappeared, the phone rang. Nobody answered, but it still rang. She contacted police, and they pinged the phone to a tower in Hilliard, a suburb 14 miles northwest of central Columbus. It could have been a glitch, it could have meant nothing. Still, it suggested the incredible, that Brian was alive. After searching miles away from the bar in every direction, police began to consider other possibilities besides an accident or foul play. Since his mother had recently died, it was speculated he had gone away temporarily to grieve in solitude. Yet, his disappearance proved permanent. No evident reasons appeared for him voluntarily disappearing. There was a lot of construction going on in the area around the Ugly Tuna when Brian disappeared. Some people comment and say that perhaps developers or building owners are covering up his death after he slipped into an out-of-bounds area, for fear of a lawsuit. Police have reviewed all footage and conducted thorough checks of the area, and they don't seem to think this is a likely possibility. As days turned to months, police asked those closest to Brian to take polygraph tests. Brian's father and his brother Derek both reportedly passed the tests, as did Meredith Reed. But Clint Florence, however, refused to take one. Derek later said that even though he didn't know Clint very well, he always thought something was off with him. He said that the negative way in which Clint spoke of his brother after his disappearance struck him as odd, and that he didn't expect that from someone whose friend vanished. There are many online rumors about Clint's role in Brian's disappearance. He was one of the last people to see Brian. Clint was the only person to decline a polygraph test, and he also got a lawyer. There is speculation that Clint was a drug user, and that it could have been related to Brian's disappearance. If Brian is alive somewhere, family and friends believe that Clint may know more about the disappearance. So far, there has been no evidence to suggest that Clint was involved in Brian's disappearance. Web sleuths also surmised that maybe Brian ran into troublemakers and had an argument with them, resulting in his death. Some people have attempted to link Brian's disappearance to the smiley face killer. Many purported smiley face victims have fallen into bodies of water while intoxicated. Randy and other searchers spent hours scouring the Olentangy River for signs of Brian or his belongings, and nothing was ever found. On September 14, 2008, almost 2.5 years after Brian disappeared, a large storm hit Randy's neighborhood in Baltimore. He stepped outside to try to clear some debris, and was suddenly struck by a falling tree. Randy's body was discovered the next morning. It was a bizarre twist of fate, the final act of a triple tragedy that, in less than 3 years, left Derek without a mother, a brother and now, a father. When the Columbus Dispatch posted Randy's obituary on their website, workmates and well-wishers left tributes at the bottom of the page. One message stuck out from the rest. It read, "Dad, I love you. Love, Brian, U.S. Virgin Islands." Columbus police traced the comment to a public computer somewhere in surrounding Franklin County. It was just another bluff, a wild internet goose chase. Ohio has a lot of young men who go missing each year, and Brian was one of them. He was an ordinary man, average weight, average haircut, regular clothes. 2 identifiers distinguished him from the other FBI profiles: in his left iris, a small black speckle no bigger than a centimeter; on his right bicep, a tattoo of the Stickman pictured on the CD case for Pearl Jam's debut single Alive. Brian, a devoted fan, planned to see them in Cincinnati. He never made it. On May 6, 2010, 4 years after he went missing, the group, Pearl Jam, performed Come Back at Columbus Nationwide Arena, 2 miles from the Ugly Tuna. Eddie Vedder dedicated the track to Brian, and asked the crowd for tips regarding Brian's disappearance. Unfortunately, none of those tips proved useful. 14 years later, Derek, the only surviving member of the Shaffer family, clings to happy memories of days gone by. He recalls how happy all of them were, and misses them dearly. Today, he lives in Pickerington, Ohio, close to where his parents died, and where his brother disappeared. He got married and has a son. But not a day goes by when Derek does not seek answers about his missing brother. What do you think happened to Brian? Was he a victim of foul play? Or did he have an unfortunate accident? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we hope you found our video interesting. Like, comment and subscribe for more fascinating unsolved mysteries.